Hello and welcome to the Celtic Way morning briefing for Monday, October the 3rd. Celtic remain top of the Scottish Premiership after an close but not close 2-1 win over Motherwell at Parkhead on Saturday afternoon. And here to sift through the bones of that one with me is TCW news writer Aidan Macdonald. How's tricks, Aidan? You good?
I'm good, Sean. How are you?
Nice one, yeah, fine and dandy. Cheers, yep. Now, before we begin, a reminder, we are more than a podcast, as I've just put in the comments there. We have a full bells and whistles website as well. There's even more stuff on there than there is on our YouTube channel. And as it stands, you can get full access to all of that for £1 for 2 months. The link to do it is in the description. It's also in the comments. But if you prefer to type it out, it's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Okay, Aidan, let's do it. Right, the Motherwell game. You've heard of the good, the bad, and the ugly, aye?
Of course.
Let's do it that way for this game. I think start with the good though. So first things first, scoreline a fair reflection of the game for you?
I think probably Celtic could have had a few more goals. They were in contention for a good chunk of it, but was just happy with the win, Sean, to be honest. It's important to get back to winning ways after the St Mirren game. What about you? Do you think could have been a few more goals?
I don't think it was a fair reflection for me. No, I think something about 3-0 Celtic would have been fairer. A couple of shots off the woodwork, couple of really good chances missed as well. 2 goals, obviously. Plus Motherwell's goal, which I'm sure we'll come to later on, was entirely Celtic's own fault. And I didn't think Motherwell offered anything really threatening otherwise. So 2-1 on paper, but to me, it was a much wider gap in practice, Aidan.
Yeah, I think I would probably have to agree with that, to be honest. But it was important to get the 3 points, particularly with Rangers winning earlier on, just to cement their place at the top of the league. So, yeah, important victory, but yeah, could be doing with scoring a few more goals.
Retro Celtic again saying the game could have been over by half time if Celtic had finished their chances. Robert Gibson doubling down on that, saying Celtic couldn't finish their dinners just now. I think we might come on to that topic, Aidan, a wee bit in possibly the bad section. But to continue with the goods, I suppose the way to do this is individual standouts. So who stood out to you and why, I suppose?
It's probably quite a simple one, but Rio Hatate I thought was really, really good. Not even just his goal, I thought a lot of his play was quite good. I know, as we'll get on to, there was instant near the end with his pass for McGregor's red card, but I thought outside of that, he was very, very controlled and made a lot of good decisions with his passing. And of course, the goal was sublime. So I would say he was my standout personally, Sean.
Aye, I'd agree with that. I think I wrote and I done the detailed player ratings. I gave them an 8, and I gave them man of the match, which I'll link to that actually. I'll put a wee link in the comments in case any of you's missed it. But he was coming off, which is what I mentioned in the ratings. He was coming off the back of an international call-up, Aidan, where he gets 0 minutes, and there's a World Cup on the horizon. That could easily get to some players because the chances of him making that squad now are slim because he never even got the chance to kind of showcase it with the squad when he was called up. But it didn't get to him. He had a stormer for me at the centre of a lot of things that were good about Celtic's play creatively. He got the winner, hit the post. That hospital pass near the end, all right, thankfully, that was his blot on his copybook, but thankfully that wasn't punished due to McGregor's quick thinking, really, and self-sacrifice. But apart from that, I think Hatate was the man for me. Besides Hatate, I thought Kyogo had a really good game as well, even if arguably, I think inarguably actually, he should have had more than one goal. But I think in general his movement was on form and just in general he seemed right on it. Anybody else, Aidan? Callum McGregor, would you rate his game without getting into the red card at the moment?
Yeah, I thought Callum McGregor looked okay. I think it was definitely an improvement on his performance against St Mirren. I know in that game he was playing a wee bit further forward, obviously, but I thought he looked fine. I think he's still, not to ever criticise him too much, but I think he's still maybe a wee bit hidden there. He's passing him a wee bit erratic as it's been the last couple of games. But yeah, I thought he was definitely better than he was against St Mirren.
I mean, for McGregor, he will rightly get plaudits for that, as I called it, self-sacrifice to stop that potential scoring chance near the end. But other than that, I did think he had a good game. Early on, it seemed to me that Motherwell were going to try and put Dean Cornelius on him when Celtic were building up to try and kind of disrupt it. People try that occasionally. Sometimes it kind of works. Most of the time, as with Saturday, McGregor finds a way. And don't forget, it was him marching through the lines with the ball that led to that opener. I know it was Jota that crossed it, it was O'Reilly that headed it, and Kyogo that put it in, but it came from McGregor driving right through that kind of left half space and playing Jota in to begin with. Aside from that, I said in my ratings, he probably is a bit more vocal during a game than people realise, but I felt on Saturday it was even kind of especially so, even more so, and that was mostly in regards to talking to his centre-backs, I thought, Aidan, during build-up, more often than not, encouraging them to play it quicker, really.
Yeah, and the leadership role from that aspect is so important, given that we do progress the ball from the back. And just to touch on what you mentioned there about McGregor's involvement in the first goal, that is one of his big strengths, the fact that he's able to kind of do that, move the ball forward so quickly, and the amount of times that will start attacks for goals must be a lot for Celtic. So, definitely for the centre backs, given that we were without the two first choice centre backs, it's important obviously that he's speaking and communicating with them, because they're going to probably be passing the ball to each other quite a lot. So that's another good trait that he's got. As we know, he's a good captain.
Apart from that, I thought Greg Taylor had another good game. Maybe not a outstanding game, but nonetheless a good game. Couple of nice creative passes, including one to Jota that was just a cracker. A couple of important tackles, including the one where it was him and McGregor kind of sandwiched the boy, and Taylor actually, it was right off his toe. Took it right off his toe, and it wasn't dribbled past all game statistically. Not a good day in the air, but overall, I thought he had another decent game, Greg Taylor. Now I'm going to ask you about Josip Juranovic's game. Do you think that should be in the good column or not? And this is not relevant to the goal specifically, because we'll come on to that in the next section. But I've seen it divided opinion, Juranovic's performance, and that was why I stuck up his kind of his underlying data and stuff on the Twitter account yesterday. What did you make? Did you think he had a decent game or subpar?
I mean, obviously, it can be hard to separate it from the goal, but I thought he did okay before the goal. I didn't think it was a particularly bad performance. He was also very unlucky not to score his free kick as well. Thought that was a brilliant free kick. Just to touch on that. I thought he did all right, Sean. To be honest, he's pretty consistent most games. Obviously, with the goal, that is a lot of people are quite rightly going to be very critical of that. I thought outside of that it was okay, to be honest, Sean, but it's hard to separate it with something.
I actually thought he'd done all right. I've been kind of semi-critical of his kind of lax passing since pre-season. He's always got one of those in him. He did have it in the early stages where it kind of caused a turnover, but then a lot of the time, and I put this out in my detailed rating, sometimes it's the fact that he's trying that riskier pass to try and get the team up the park and through the lines and stuff, and sometimes it just doesn't work. I think you could see that with Matt O'Reilly as well. On Saturday, he had one of his really, certainly creatively, because off the ball he was still all there. Off the ball, he was pressing, his counter pressing and stuff, but certainly creatively on the ball, his passing rate was low, and it wasn't because he was just trying risky passes, that it just wasn't coming off from him. And I think there's an element of that to Juranovic, albeit he doesn't try. He's not quite as creative, if you want to put it that way, as Matt O'Reilly. But there's always that impression I get from him that he will have a bit of a lax pass in him. But overall, and I always say this when Mans Postecoglou talks about kind of resilience, it's how you respond to errors and mistakes and stuff. And I thought Juranovic responded in a way that Postecoglou would probably be pretty happy with to that own goal. Which I suppose leads us on to the bad section. We've had a few comments about that and about different things, and for me, I want to start with that. I want to start with the Motherwell goal, Aidan. So it probably could be in the ugly section as well, this, to be honest, but it comes from a corner, a Sean Goss in-swinger from the Celtic left, cleared to the edge of the area by Maeda, at the front, from the front post to the edge of the area by Maeda, and then Jota kind of sclaffs his attempt at clearing it further, kind of goes in the air back into the Celtic area. And I mean, what happened there, Aidan? Like, have you figured it out? Because I've still not really figured it
out. Yeah, I don't even know what to say. Obviously, there's been a major bit of miscommunication between Juranovic and Joe Hart. Whether or not people were going to blame one more than the other.
Mhm.
I don't really know. Probably the fact that as Juranovic, he kind of chased it in, he is going to get more of the blame. Joe Hart's kind of almost going the opposite way. So I like to think that Joe Hart would not be giving him a shout, given that he was running the opposite way, given how experienced a goalie is. Yeah, you can see what he's trying to do. He's just trying to chest it back to the keeper, and he probably does that a few times every game, and it's always, or sorry, a player in the defence does that a couple of times every game, and it's, you don't even think about it because Joe Hart just collects it, or it just rolls into his hands. So yeah, it's hard to know exactly kind of
Who to
what.
blame?
Yeah, to be honest, but it's one of those ones. It's probably would be more analysed if we dropped points in the game, Sean.
Aye. No, I agree with you. Aye, I agree
Obviously,
with you.
when you're looking at mistakes, if you're wanting to eradicate them, the mistakes still there, so you need to try and look to improve on it regardless of the result. But yeah, I think the fact we won the game will probably maybe brush it under the carpet a wee bit. But yeah, it was a bit of a strange one, to be honest.
And my ratings, at the time, remember, I'd only seen it once. I'd only seen it live. So I said at the time, I felt there were two questions in relation to Joe Hart in particular, but in general, I suppose it relates to the two of them. The first one was, did he shout for it? Because I just couldn't tell. And two, did he need to shout for it? Because there was no Motherwell player anywhere near Juranovic as far as I could see. So when you consider the answer to that second question, what you consider the answer to that second question to be, probably tells you how much culpability you might feel that Hart cops for it. Ultimately, I've seen it back a few times. I still can't see from the angles if he shouts for it or not. You'd like to imagine he must be shouting for it at that point. But that's why I'm still kind of wondering, trying to figure out exactly what happened. I don't see somebody like Joe Hart coming out for that without shouting and screaming. So I suppose with Juranovic, again, it's the same question. Did Hart shout for it? Because basically communication is the key to it. If Hart is screaming to leave it, whether he should come for it or not is essentially irrelevant at that point, because your defender, to me, should be almost scared to touch it with the keeper balling and advancing and screaming. So it's a mix-up. It's a silly one. Ultimately, as you say, it thankfully didn't cost Celtic a couple of points, but I'm still very confused by it. Put it that way.
Yeah, and probably the camera angles we've seen back in television don't really help on the sports scene. A lot of it was somewhat behind Joe Hart, so you can't see if he's shouting for it, and then the kind of first angle is quite far away from him, so you couldn't really make out what he was saying. Yeah, to be honest, he probably did shout for it, given his experience in that, but they obviously just kind of get the angle all wrong. Yeah, it's quite hard to see, to be honest.
Jerry Coyle saying Juranovic's peripheral vision should have seen where the yellow shirt was. Andrew Galea saying mistakes happen when the keeper doesn't dominate his 6-yard box. I mean, can you see where they're coming from, Aidan? With both of those points, one saying Juranovic, one saying the keeper. Kind of ties in with what we're saying, but depends if he shouted to me. But
yeah, it probably does. It probably does just depend on your kind of perception of it. I don't know if maybe people that were at the game, sitting up that side of the stadium, I should say, maybe they could have heard Joe Hart having a shout for it or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't really know what to say about it, to be honest. It's hard.
well, the main takeaway is it happened.
Yeah.
They won the game. It didn't cause a drop in points. But as I said in the data roundup and in the well, it's before I had the data, but the ratings in general, it was Motherwell's goal, but it was also their best chance. They never really created anything. It was, even the goal that they scored was down to Celtic. So again, 2-1 to me just was not a reflection of that game at all. And it almost makes it seem as if Celtic played worse than they did from what I'm seeing from a few quarters. I don't think Celtic played that badly. They just missed chances again, which is the second bad, Aidan. Another critique that applies quite often, really, for a team that scores as many goals as Celtic. We do say this quite a bit, but it's that fancy word. Tony takes the mic from me from using now and again. Profligacy. Aidan, they waste good chances. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely recently. Obviously, St Mirren game aside, probably we didn't really create anything, but Shakhtar away was kind of a prime example of maybe not taking your chances. And obviously, I know in previous weeks before that, Dundee United Rangers, we'd scored like a lot of goals, to be fair. But yeah, it does seem to be there's maybe a slight issue with taking chances at the moment. And if games are going to be tight, only one goal in it, really. I mean, that's a completely different game. Of in that first half, Kyogo scores that header, then the other chances, and then if Abada scores his one at the end. So you're probably not even really considering the Juranovic issue, because that wouldn't even have made it 1-1 at that stage. You would have already had a few goals. So yeah, I just think probably in the league a lot of time you're going to get away with it because you will get lots of chances.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the Champions League, particularly this game, I'm sure we'll talk about over the coming days, against Leipzig, you might only get like one or two chances, so you really need to be being a bit more clinical. Hopefully it's just a wee spell they're going for. I mean, we've already seen this season the amount of goals they can score, Sean, so I think it will come back round and we'll start scoring plenty again. But yeah, it's definitely something to work on at the moment.
I think they've already been caught with that in the Champions League in the opening couple of games, the chances missed and when they were missed, that kind of thing. And you're right, domestically, it's probably a simple case of opponents aren't necessarily clinical enough themselves to punish Celtic. They also don't create as much as Champions League opponents would either, a lot of the time. David Gillespie saying Celtic controlled the game. You run that game 100 times and more often than not, Celtic win by 2 clear goals at least. Now, if you've read their data roundup, StatsBomb, our kind of data provider, they run a trend line, which is, I've put it up here before, and it just kind of shows you the chances in terms of shots taken, and it does it as like a graph, and it has a cumulative expected goals at the end of it. Now, at the top of that wee graph, they've always essentially done what David said there. They kind of run it through a simulator, and based on the shots and the chances created, this is the percentage chance that a team would win that game out of 100 times. It was 98% Celtic win that game. Now, obviously, David's saying win by 2 clear goals, but the XG was essentially 3 or 4-0. They would have scored 3 or 4 goals most of the time. They only scored 2. And one of those goals, Real Hatate's winner, was like a low quality chance just because of how good a finish it was. It wasn't one you would expect them to score a lot of the time. So that just tells you how much they passed up, which comes back to this profligacy again. In terms of those advanced stats, they created enough chances to score 3 or 4 goals. They scored twice. Technically 3 times, I suppose, if you include the own goal. But I'll say it again, and I keep coming back to it. It wasn't a 2-1 game, Aidan. And I know ones that don't like stats will say, well, it was a 2-1 game because that's where it finished. But you know what I mean? The way the game was played out, it just was not a 2-1 game to me.
I think, to be honest, even people that maybe aren't a fan of stats, if you were at the game or you watched it online or you were watching highlights, you could see how many chances Celtic had, like really good chances, not just, sporadic shots from outside the box or whatever. There was plenty of opportunities, and yeah, I guess Ange Postecoglou thinking, well, we are still dominating games, we are creating plenty of opportunities, we just need to be a wee bit more clinical. And I still don't want to be too harsh on that, because I do appreciate that we've scored a lot of goals this season, and you've won the majority of your games. But yeah, I just think maybe they're saving a few goals for the Leipzig game, Sean.
Retro Celtic saying he thinks folk are reading too much into the game. There was only going to be one winner. On the opposite end, Curtis says, no, Sean, we were poor. What's happened to the fast stats? Jota was nowhere. I didn't think Jota was that bad, actually. I thought he was fairly creative by his own standards, potentially not up there. But even on what I would agree is one of his quieter games, I thought he still gave Paul McGinn a tough time of it. Still got an assist. I don't know, Aidan. What do you think? Do you think Celtic were poor? I think there was certainly subpar individual performances. As I say, Matt O'Reilly was nowhere near his usual self. Stephen Welsh never had a great game. There was obviously the mix-up with Hart and Juranovic, but overall, I don't think they were poor, and I think the advanced stats show they created more than enough, and the scoreline is almost, as Retro Celtic said, making people read a wee bit too much into it. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I think there was maybe aspects to the performance from individuals, like you're saying, that wasn't great. I don't know. I don't know if I would say it was a poor performance. Was it one of the better ones? Probably you'll look back across the end of the season and go, that was a classic. Probably not. But I thought aspects were okay. And like you said, the data kind of shows a lot of times. Firstly, the majority of times you would have won the game, but secondly, you could have won it 3-4-5-0 or whatever. So I think it was really important just to get the win after that St Mirren game. So yeah, it's not the classic performance, but I think it was okay, to be honest.
Right, we'll stay on the bad topics. I've seen, it's our final bad before we move on to the ugly, but I've spotted a couple of comments referencing this, Aidan. So we'll touch on it, the performance of the officials. First of all, should Celtic have had a penalty for the Ricky Lamy handball later on, the Abada attempted cross?
I think potentially, Sean, to be honest. Like I say, it was another one when I actually seen it back on the telly. That was when you were able to get a better look at it. It was a bit close to him, I guess you could say, like in terms of like when Abada actually played the kind of cross. But I think you've seen them given, to be fair, at times.
Patrick McLaughlin, definite penalty. Raymond Haddon, Stonewall pen. Andrew Galea, penalty, yes. Drew Sturgeon saying that would have been a soft penalty. My own view on it is I reckon it was a penalty, and as I always do, I look at the IFAB rules, Aidan. The IFAB's handball rules, mention, they specifically say at the start not every touch of a hand is a handball offence, but they say it is if you've made yourself unnaturally bigger, which I think Ricky Lamy has, mostly as a result of kind of half turning his back and not facing it up. But I still think he made himself unnaturally bigger. Or if your hand deliberately moves towards the ball. Now, the deliberately part is hard to judge, intent, that kind of thing. But it certainly moves towards the ball from what I can see. So I think it was a penalty. It would have been a yellow card rather than a red because it wasn't an obvious goal scoring chance that it was stopping. But for me, I do agree with the likes of Patrick and Andrew there. I think it was a penalty. It was also, Aidan, the 73rd minute as well. So what impact that might have had later, for instance, I'm sure we will come on to the incident and the ugly side of it. But does it potentially change a certain captain's decision if they've already had a penalty and scored it?
Yeah, if you've scored the penalty to go, would that have been 3-0 up at that stage?
It would have
3-1, sorry.
3-1, aye.
3-1. So, yeah, I think it probably does, to be honest, yeah, given that they would have had a 2-goal advantage rather than one. And I think it probably was a penalty, yeah. But what can you do? It's one of those ones. VAR, as the comment says,
Aye,
the VAR does get that instant.
I mean, it obviously didn't matter in the end, but I do think it was a penalty. There was other decisions as well. I know Ange Postecoglou never likes to really mention referees early doors. As I say, we'll do it anyway. We do it regularly. So early days, Ricky Lamy again. That could have potentially been his second yellow if he did get booked for the penalty incident, Aidan, because he was involved in a wee altercation, but a one-sided altercation with Kyogo early on. Avoided a booking on that occasion, which you imagine he kind of hauled him to the deck after Kyogo had kind of nudged him off the ball, and you imagine it was a wee lash out, almost an embarrassment maybe, because he'll feel that he shouldn't be getting out muscled by Kyogo, Aidan. Linesman was obviously too busy, I think, looking at his own flag raising technique, and John Beaton presumably was checking the time or something, I don't know, but neither of them said a word about it. He basically just hauled him at the deck. I think it was a bookable offence. There was other such instances as well. I would say there's a few being mentioned in the comments. A couple of tackles getting in. There was one on Hatate as well. Overall, not a great performance from the officials. A couple of things that VAR would have potentially have rectified. Aidan, do you think?
Yeah, particularly the penalty and the one with the player being Kyogo being pulled to the ground. They would have definitely been picked up. Although, like you say, you can probably argue that with Ricky Lamy pulling Kyogo at the ground, you shouldn't need any sort of technology to see that. Officials should just be spotting it. But yeah, I don't think it was a vintage refereeing performance, Sean. That's probably all I'll say about
that. I'm going to put this in while we're still not went on to the ugly section, but Stuart Ross, one of our columnists, Scout, has broken down Raul Hatate's display in minute detail. Because I've called it a tour de force in the headline. It was a great display. It was pretty much the reason Celtic won in the end, not just because he scored the winner, but just his all-round play I thought was magnificent. So Stuart broke it down in detail, yes, including the bit that we're about to come to, Aidan, the ugly part of our good, the bad and the ugly, which is the McGregor red card / Raul Hatate's hospital pass. What's your views on it?
Well, firstly, it's a poor pass from Hatate. I don't know if he just doesn't look up properly before playing it, but he almost
That's exactly what he doesn't do. He doesn't look at all.
He almost like curves the ball around McGregor I don't really know what he was doing, to be honest. There, probably like you just said, he just wasn't looking properly. Then McGregor, he takes one for the team.
Do you think it should have been a red?
So at the time, I was like, oh yeah, clear red card, to be honest. But then after Andrew's comments and watching it back on Sports Scene, I was thinking, could Stephen Welsh have potentially covered? It's hard to tell exactly because you're not able to actually see it properly. It's probably a wee bit similar to the incident during the COVID season when Beaton was sent off at Ibrox. Neil Lennon at that time has said, was Christopher Aaron able to get across and cover it? There's a big debate about, regardless of how fast a player is, could they have got by? I don't know. Maybe it's a wee bit similar to that. I don't know. To be honest, I don't know if Stephen Welsh can get across. I honestly, he might have been able to. It definitely wasn't a completely clear cut last man, which I thought it was when it first happened. But he takes one for the team, to be honest, for me. I know people say it's cheating, but he takes one for the team for me.
David Ferguson saying, is he the only one that thinks Stephen Welsh could have covered for McGregor? He thinks it's never a red. Andrew Galea saying he doesn't know who Real Hatate was playing it to. I think that's a great shout because I think it's one of those where he's played it without looking, half expecting someone to be in that general area.
Yeah.
Has he kind of spotted? I mean, if he's spotting someone who's peripheral vision, there's a chance it's Hart that he saw rather than McGregor. Because Hart's on his way out, McGregor's there, but he's got Ross Tierney on him. Initially, I wrote in my ratings it was Louis Moult, it wasn't, it was Ross Tierney. So I think that's a good comment from Andrew. Curtis says it's a terrible pass from someone who was tiring. Definitely a red. Patrick McLaughlin making the point, Jens and Welsh were potentially too far apart and Hart was in a terrible position. I think that's why they were as far apart though. Jens was the one that played it at Hatate, so he was already in that left channel. Hart was coming out as he usually does to help when they've got the ball. So it was kind of natural for Welsh to be slightly further to the right, I think. I don't think it's probably fair to be singling Welsh out on that. But the last part of Patrick's comment is it. Hatate's pass was a shocker. For me, I think it was a red. You're right to say, as Postecoglou suggested afterwards, that Celtic would just have to cop it. As he said, he felt that maybe they had a covering player. Presumably the covering player he was referring to was Welsh rather than Hart. For me, it's not really strictly to do with McGregor as the kind of quote-unquote last man. McGregor and the last man thing. It's not... That's not really a thing in the IFAB laws. But where it is relevant is that if the potential covering player was there, it might not actually be a clear scoring opportunity. So it's not necessarily the last man thing per se. It's is it a clear goal scoring opportunity? Now, I think Welsh wasn't close enough to be deemed covering, meaning that Ross Tierney was clean through on goal. Hart was in no man's land because he was trying to retreat from the high position he'd taken. I think it was a goal scoring opportunity. Other officials might have interpreted it differently, but I can't really complain about a red. I complain about other decisions in that game, but I can't complain in good conscience about that one. I don't think McGregor will complain either. He's well aware of the need to ensure that no shot at goal even takes place with the score at 2-1 in that situation. And chances are they won't score from a free kick, and I think McGregor knows that. So if he gets a red, so be it. If he got a yellow, happy days. But I think he's went into it fully knowing what's happening. If he gets a red, so be it. His team will have all but closed out the 3 points and stayed top. As acceptable a red card as you'll get, I think, and no wonder he was applauded off, I suppose. You get, the way I would sum it up, Aidan, is you get stupid red cards and you get, very rarely, you get smart red cards, and this was a smart red card.
Yeah, I think it was, and he did very much take one for the team. It was like something, you expect a captain to do, and he did do it. But people obviously are always going to get a bit annoyed when somebody gets sent off, but I think that occasion it was completely justified because, say, even Stephen Welsh could potentially got across. Callum McGregor doesn't know that 100%. So it is a clear goal scoring opportunity if the guy gets in. Given what you were saying about Joe Hart as well, kind of being in no man's land with it, it was an important challenge he had to make. And if we score a few more chances, it's probably one he doesn't make. But at the end of the day, we didn't score a few more, so there was only a goal in it, and you had to win the game. So yeah, he took one for the team there.
I like this one, Aidan. David Ferguson, why not let it play out to see if Wales could cover it? Just terrible refereeing. because Ross Tierney was on the deck. That's why, because he couldn't run through anymore. Callum McGregor had taken him down. So it's an unknowable ultimately, and it is down to interpretation. A good few comments saying that they feel Welsh could have covered it. I don't think. I think he was too far over. John Beattie must have saw it the same way. Retro Celtic, perhaps with a more pertinent comment. Will Celtic appeal it? Because I feel it was a red and you're not sure, as Postecoglou says, potentially there was a covering player. He might revise that when he sees it back. He might not, but it's almost neither here nor there. They might just appeal it anyway.
They might. I mean, particularly if Ange still shares the same opinion that he did after the game, that he thinks Wales could have covered, I'd imagine they will try and appeal it. Obviously, you would then need to watch if that could then, lead to like someone getting added on to the ban. Whereas I believe, is it just one game he's been banned for, Sean? I don't know if that's
for straight reds.
Yeah.
I can't remember actually, but it's not been put up on the Scottish FA disciplinary
case's not
website
been
anyway,
done.
so it will be updated on that when if they appeal it, but if it's not, it'll still be up there anyway. I suppose it depends. St Johnstone's the next domestic game. Do you just accept it? Do you get Oliver Abelgard in there maybe for his debut? Do you get Aaron Moy a start? Do you just use that opportunity to give McGregor a day off for once, that kind of thing? We'll see. We'll see. But I'm not sure if they'll appeal it or not. And as I say, sometimes it won't even matter if they actually think it was a red or not. It depends on the next game more than anything else. Do they want him for that? Do they just cop it? That kind of thing. But aye. So anything else to add on the red card, Aidan? It was pretty much covered it.
Yeah, I would say so. Just once again, he took one for the team, and you could look back on that particular moment at the end of the season as well. That was an important bit of decision making.
That's a good shout, to be honest. That is a good shout. Kaiser saying it's a world-class red card. Right, I think I've got one more thing to put up, which for those of you on Twitter, you'll like this. We're running another Celtic Top giveaway on my Twitter account. Put the link in the comments. If you want to get involved, you just follow that link or just go to the Celtic Way Twitter account, retweet the post and follow the account, and that's you in the draw, which I'll be making on Friday, I believe it was, I'd says. Apart from that, Aidan, will we call time there today, I think?
Yeah, I think so, Sean.
Yep. Thank you for your input, as always. Thanks to all the commenters as well, always appreciated. I will give you a wee note to check back here on the channel later for a video special ahead of the RB Leipzig game. And apart from that, we'll be back to chat to you all again live tomorrow morning as usual too. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.